Hi everybody, I'm Richard. Welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. Today we're going to be taking a look at 22 caliber rimfire rounds, and we're going to look at the history of them, where they began and how they were used. I don't want to get into the specifics of every single 22 caliber rimfire round out there, but there are a whole lot of them. And there are rounds that are considered 22 centerfire, such as the 223, 22-250. That is a centerfire, but we're just going to look at the rimfire ones today. Now the first one I want to look at are these. These are 22 caliber Floberts. They are a very tiny round, and these were developed by Louis Nicolas Flobert, a French inventor, back in 1845, and they're still made today. Thus is where I got this little 100 round. They used to be in tins. This is a little plastic case, and that's the way you're usually going to find them. These are very limited runs, even though they're still available today. When you find these, if you have a gun that shoots one of these, the parlor guns, then you'll probably want to pick up a few of these if you're going to plan on using it any amount, because these are pretty tough to find. Now, the parlor guns were made for indoor shooting in, the upper class people that had very large homes that could do shooting inside. They're very quiet. They do not have a whole lot of velocity, a whole lot of energy. So I've heard that 3 or 4 sheets of cardboard, corrugated cardboard, will actually stop the rounds. I have not tried them yet, but I do have a box of these. Even though I do not currently have one of the parlor guns, I will get me one of these days. Now, the Floberts, or Floberts, as we Americans call it anyways, were developed, like I said, for indoor shooting, and they're a lot of times are referred to as 22 BB caps, or maybe 6mm BB caps and 6mm CB caps. The BB is for bulleted breech loading cartridge, and it's the very first cartridge round available. Everything prior to that was going to be loose powder, ball, patch, all that kind of stuff, muzzle loading stuff. And these were the first breech bullet design. And then the CB is a conical ball or bullet that goes in there. Same thing, about the same velocities and everything. They might be a little more aerodynamic and fly a little bit better. The next one I want to talk about is the 22 short. Now, the 22 short is available by a bunch of different manufacturers. I got Aguila, I've got CCI, I've got Remingtons, I've got a whole bunch of the 22 shorts, and the shorts are some of my favorite ones. Now, originally, these came out in 1857, and they're still made today too. So this is America's oldest round right here. Not this box. They were made for Smith & Wesson's very first revolver, and it was developed for personal protection. It was a lot easier to load the cartridges in there. Now, they were not super powerful rounds. They were packed with either a 29 or a 30 grain bullet and had about 4 grains of black powder in them. So they were not the most powerful. You could have plenty of different muzzle loaders that had a lot more power, velocity, and energy than the 22 shorts. But these are really convenient because you can just pop the cartridges in, pop the spent ones out when you're done with it. They did eventually find their way into shooting galleries at fairs and arcades and stuff like that. But their original design was for personal protection. Now, the next round that came out was the 22 long, and these came out in 1871, and these are also still produced today. They are a little harder to find. Same thing, that's kind of a seasonal run. Just a hair longer than the 22 long rifle, and quite a bit longer than the 22 short. These were a more powerful round. Now, these were loaded, the 22 longs were loaded with a 29 grain bullet and 5 grains of black powder, so that really increased the oomph of these things. Same thing, they were for personal protection too, although they did find their way into a few rifles as they became more popular. All right, the next round that came out after the 22 long would have been the 22 extra long, which I do not have. Now, those were manufactured from 1880 to 1835, and then they just pretty much fizzled out. They were used by Remington, Ballard, Wesson, Stevens, and a few Winchesters as well in the early 1900s, I believe it was. They had a 40 grain bullet, and now they're packing 6 grains of black powder in there, so a little more oomph than the 5 grain extra longs, and more oomph than the 4 grain shorts. All right, so the next round that came out was in 1890, one of my favorite and newest acquisitions to my collection. With the Winchester 1890 that came out, they introduced the Winchester Rimfire, which is, it's a little different bullet now. We went from, with the shorts, the longs, the extra longs, we went from a heeled bullet or rebated. The base of that bullet is a little bit smaller, so that the outside of the bullet is the same diameter as the chamber or as the case is, and they were referred to as outside lubricated because they had the little lubrication rings around the outside of it in there. When we go to the Winchester Rimfire, now we're looking at an inside lubricated, which means that that little space, that little part of the bullet that's inside the case there is where your lubrication grooves are, and then they're kind of protected by the case themselves. And this is the reason why, if you have a gun, most of the time a revolver that shoots both, well, it's probably always going to be a revolver, but if it shoots both 22 long rifle and 22 magnums, you have to change the cylinder on it because the case diameter on the 22 Magnum is a little bit bigger diameter, and the bullet sits down inside there, where a 22 long rifle, the case diameter is the same diameter as the bullet, and the bullet being heeled, only the base of it fits in the shell, but the outside of the bullet is the same diameter as the case itself. But the 22 Magnums, we'll get to that in a little bit. Right now we're talking about the Winchester Rimfire. Like I said, introduced in the 1890 by Winchester. I think it was also, you could find it as the 22 Remington Special or 22 Special, because for some reason they did not like to, none of the other manufacturers liked to give credit to Winchester for anything, such as the 44 Winchester Centerfire is known as the 4440, so that we could not associate the 4440 with Winchester having developed it. That was a Union Metallic thing. That was the company that made the 4440s. Same dimensions, everything, as the 44 Winchester Centerfire. The WRF was developed because it had more killing power for small game environments out to 75 yards than the 22 longs or extra longs or anything. So they became a pretty popular round, and they're still available today as the limited runs of the CCI makes them, and I think Winchester also makes some occasionally. They're very limited runs, but they still manufacture these today. All right, another one of the rounds that I do not have available because they were only made from 1903 to 1932 is the 22 Winchester Automatic. Now, the only similarity it really has is that it's a 22 caliber rimfire. The case dimensions on these were made in these rounds were designed in the smokeless powder era. So to prevent you from accidentally loading one of the smokeless powder rounds into a black powder firearm, they manufactured a case that was dimensionally different so it would not fit in those older black powder firearms with the softer, more mild steel in them. So those kind of fell away. Like I said, 1932 was the last year they manufactured those. I don't have any of those to show. You could probably find them in some places, but there's not too many firearms that were made with that. All right, the next round I want to talk about is the 22 long rifle. And that is the most popular 22 round in the world. Now, this was developed by the J. Stevens Tool and Arm Company back in 1887, and they are still made today. And you can get them in a slew of different bullets, different velocities, different cases, everything. I mean, there's the regular standard velocity. There are shot shells available. You've got stingers. You've got tactical rounds. You've got standard velocities. You've got mini mags. You've got super calibres, and these are pretty cool too because it's kind of like the Flauberts or Flauberts, but in a 22 long rifle case. No powder in them, just the primer, but it'll chamber in a regular 22 long rifle firearm if you still like doing that kind of shooting. There are countless numbers of varieties of 22 long rifle. Like I said, this is the longest running and most popular, not the longest running, but the most popular 22 caliber rimfire round out there. All right, probably one of my favorite 22 rimfire rounds is going to be the 22 Magnum. Again, this is another round that has been manufactured in a bunch of different configurations. You got soft point, soft tip, hollow points, copper jacketed stuff. And a lot of these are going to be copper jacketed because the velocities started peaking on these things and getting to that range where they start causing a lot of leading in the barrels, and that can really cause some problems. So they put the copper jacket on there, and then that lead doesn't smear away on there. They're available in ballistic tips. They are available in the shot shells too. 40 grains, they're available anywhere from, I think it's, let's see, 30 grains at about 2,200 feet per second to 50 grains at about 1,530 feet per second. So once you start getting in those higher velocities like that, you have to reduce the barrel leading, so they put the copper jackets on them. Now these are great rounds for small game and varmint, depending on the round you use. You get the heavier solid point bullets. They don't do as much damage if you're out you know, hunting small game. The hollow points will do some pretty good damage on some varmints, as well as the ballistic tip stuff from Hornady. They were developed in 1959 and they're still manufactured today, and they are one of my favorite smaller rounds like that. I'm really a big fan of the variations that came from the 22 rimfire stuff, such as 17 Mach 2, HMR, Winchester Super Magnums. There's a whole bunch of those too, but that's a whole other story there. All right, everybody, we took a look at a whole lot of 22 rimfire rounds that are, some are still in production. A couple of them went out back in the 30s and stuff, but most of them, the majority of them, are still in production today. America's oldest cartridge is 22 short, originally developed for self-defense in the Smith & Wesson's first revolver, all the way through the 22 Magnums. And they're available in all different kind of packages too. You can get these little 50 round boxes like this, the Stingers. You can get 100 round boxes. You can get bulk packs, 325 round, 150 round, depends on the round and how big the box is. You can get a 1,400 round bucket of bullets from Remington. You can get a whole brick, and they're manufactured by just about anybody that manufactures ammo of any kind. They usually make some sort of a rimfire round too, just because of the popularity of it. 22 long rifle being the most popular in the world is a whole lot of fun. They're great for small game hunting. They're great for just getting out there and target practicing, a little bit of planking, shooting some tin cans or something. They're available in all different kind of packaging and stuff. Here's a Christmas one from 2016. I've had that one for a little while. The shot shells for small pests, snakes and stuff like that, rats, whatever, out in your barn. You got some target ammo. You've got just all kind of stuff. There's a ton of it out there. Anyways, thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review. If you could, reach up here and hit this button, check out some of my other videos, and hit the little round one up here to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching.